is on the emerging trends and changing landscape. I request our chair, Dr. Manish Saxena, to give his opening remarks and set the tone for the session. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thanks, Vinay. Thanks for also reminding me from where I started my career in. It's been a long time. Good evening to all of you and welcome to this session. As such, satellite communication, or SatCom as we call it, has existed as its own means of mode of communication along with the other technologies, so including mobile telephony, broadband, broadcasting, and so on. And there have been many occasions where SatCom has intersected with the other technologies for communication. However, the influence has been quite limited. But the scenario has changed over the last decade or so with the emergence of many new technology trends that have impacted both SatCom as well as the other modes of communication, including mobile telecommunication, which includes technology trends like MSS, or we say satellite-based broadband, whether it is consumer or enterprise broadband, or the very recent phenomena of direct-to-device mobile communications. So all of these, basically these trends are heading towards something wherein the convergence of technology is not only at the supplier side, but primarily at the user side, which is what is driving all these intersections to not only increase, but also there has been a significant increase in the influence between the various technical parameters. So it is not only at the radio side, not only at the network side, but even at the user equipment side. So these are various technology trends that are emerging and that are influencing not only the terrestrial-based communication systems, but also SatCom as a technology. And when we look at our own country, India, so here we have the space sector and the telecom sector. Both of them have seen very significant changes over the past few years. Space sector, as we all know, has undergone reforms in 2020. And subsequent to that, the creation of an authorization and promotional mechanism in the country, the promotion of private sector enterprises to come and contribute to the space sector economy as a partner rather than just as a vendor. Similarly, in the telecom sector, we are seeing these concepts that are coming up with respect to saturation of connectivity to each and every nook and corner of the country, and also the role that the country wishes to take in the future emerging technologies like 6G, which will not just be a follower but also a leader in these technology arenas. So it is very pertinent today that in this India Mobile Congress, we are talking of SatCom as one of the contributors to the mobile technology in general, and also as something that really mushrooms and grows along with the other allied technologies in mobile communication. So welcome to this session, and I'm very glad that Vinay has curated a very good experts panel over here, which represent the cross-section of the various technological elements that are involved in SatCom and in supporting the various modes of communication. So we look forward to a very insightful and interesting session. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for highlighting the changes that has happened. And with the change, the last change that I recall in the telecom sector was brought in by the entry of Reliance Jio. So I take this opportunity to start with Mr. Prafulji. And given your experience as an ex-ISRO with both the segments and knowing the current partnership of Reliance with SES for its MEO satellite as well as Geo satellites, I wanted to have your view on whether you have any plans on utilizing these multi-orbit solutions and what could be the emerging use cases in India coupled with the software-defined payloads and ground networks. Over to you, sir.
Thanks. Thank you, Vinay. And in my view, the multi-orbit is not a technology first, in my view. It's give an opportunity for the satellite operator to utilize better resources, be it in GEO, MEO or LEO, depending on the different type of application. For example, application related to the low latency broadband where the LEO will play a major role. Then the GEO will give the wider coverage and the high capacity broadcast type of application. And MEO play in between role for a fiber type of experience in space. So these are the three different orbits which gives the different type of application. And it's not a technology, it's like using all the resources together to provide those applications. So in my view, today if we talk about the multi-orbit, it's all totally rely on the two part of it. One is user terminal, and second is the network intelligence. So we should have a right product, a right ground segment or user terminal, which can smoothly shift between the three orbit. And then the second part is the network intelligent, which is not in the sky, rather everything on the ground using the software defined ground network, which orchestrated the resources, and then it direct the user terminal to switch between those orbits. So it's not a straight case, it's a little complicated as on today, how to leverage it. And if you see the user terminal point of view, then parabolic reflector type of terminal may not be suitable for this. So we should go with the phased array antenna, which has a better view and quick switching between the orbits. So we need to understand whether these ecosystems already available and it can be used or not. Though even if it is being used, we need to understand about the cost effectiveness of it, whether for all the application this multi-orbit is going to work or it is going to work for the some specific cases. So these, and second part is there has to be a very close coordination and cooperation between the user terminal manufacturer, network operator, satellite manufacturer, so that for the user point of view, there is even user will not know about this complexity and they have to get the right product. But for the satellite operator and manufacturer, there is a role to play and all those systems has to come together. And if I talk about, since you have mentioned about the use cases, so as per my opinion today, the multi-orbit is not going to solve all the problem first. Initially, it could be, or it might be useful for the mission critical link, and which requires the always 24/7 connectivity each and every place. So basically, in terms of the government application, which always need the access of the connectivity, be it the lower data rate or higher data rate, they cannot survive even for a second outage. So for that type of application, probably multi-orbit will be the suitable. Second use case, if I see today, maybe maritime, because there will be a cases when there are a blockage or outage in case of the NGSO, where the geo system can play as a backup role, at least to provide a sort of connectivity. So, but if you talk about the broadband, internet broadband, consumer broadband, in my view, considering the today's device ecosystem, it may not be a feasible or viable option. But going forward in future, I see the multi-orbit is a game changer. But to start with, it will be a limited use case. And once all the device ecosystem developed and it becomes the cost effective, then it can be a broader application. But today it will be a limited for the some application only. Thank you.
Thank you, Prafulji, for highlighted two things. One is the suitability for maritime applications, and other was this, we need to utilize all the available resources. With that, I come to Mr. Gautam Sharma. With this in time and the history of Inmarsat providing the maritime solution, and as pointed by Prafulji of utilizing all resources, I believe Viasat has a solution with integration of the NTN technologies and offering even all the multi-orbit solutions also. If you could throw some light on the utility of such application specific to the maritime sector also.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for having me here in this session. So I think with our experience, we believe multi-orbit, multi-band is going to be a game changer. And I'll just share with our experience, ongoing experience. If we see, majority of the applications still, I would say 80 to 90% of the applications which people, the customers are using, whether it is in defense, maritime, aviation, mobility markets, it's all, they don't have much impact on latency, but then there are certain applications where, you need to have low latency, So what we have realized, it makes sense for the customers to actually have a multi-orbit, multi-band situation where they're able to utilize the advantages of Geo, LEO, and probably even MEO and LTE also. Especially we have seen in Nexus Wave, which is growing in a very fast manner actually. And I'll give you an example. Today, if you see, we have around 130,000 vessels worldwide which are connected either by GMDSS or by Fleet Broadband or by Fleet Express. So there's an opportunity. There's already multiple layers which we have built for the end customers. So by adding LEO to it, we're kind of creating more resilience for them. So as per our experience as of now, we see an exponential growth when we follow multi-orbit. Same goes with aviation. We come with a new terminal called ERA, which has a capability of using all kind of satellites, whether those are LEO, MEO, or GEO, and ensure customers get the best experience. So, that's from my side.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. As you rightly pointed out, the integration of coming into the LEO in addition to GEO will definitely add value. And with Eutelsat OneWeb being one of the first to have both presence as a LEO as well as a GEO satellite operator, I come to you, Nehaji, if you can throw some light on what has been your experience and the specific advantages of having presence in both, and any SLA level advantages specific to the end user of having this solution.
Absolutely. Thanks, Vinay. As you correctly pointed out, today we are in the world the only live GEO, LEO multi-orbit constellation provider, and the idea of the merger of Eutelsat and OneWeb was because we saw the power of multi-orbit and bringing the various technologies together. I think my fellow panelist Gautam has clearly mentioned some of these use cases where we see the big advantage. Mobility, as spoken by the panel here, whether it's maritime or aviation, there is a significant advantage, as you said, because of the SLA and because of ensuring a coverage, viable coverage throughout. And today, when we say multi-orbit, it's not just GEO and LEO separately provided as a service. We even have integrated user terminals, particularly on the aero side today, being fitted into aeroplanes to actually cater to this GEO-LEO solution. The other thing I must point out, as Gautam also mentioned, not all applications need the low latency that LEO provides. So GEO still has a role to play. A, like you said, for SLAs. B, GEO can provide massive capacity density to an area where it will have a role to play, and you can supplement that with some LEO capacity for low latency sensitive applications. So, and as we've seen in the world, connectivity is one of those forms. Any sort of new technology you bring, it will have a role to play, and there is more and more data that's being consumed. Satellite, we strongly believe, plays a strong role complementary to terrestrial technologies. And these applications we are talking of, aviation, maritime, or even government use cases, there is a clear realization that GEO, LEO, any sort of complementary terrestrial connectivity provides a level of resilience and redundancy even to terrestrial connectivity. So yeah, to summarize, there are a lot of advantages of bringing these various technologies together for the various applications.
Very well summarized also. Now I come to Mr. Pernil. It will be fair enough to say that we'll not be sitting here if not the disruption brought in by the entry of Starlink, one of the first mega constellation in orbit today. And consumer broadband, as we all know, is one of the major use cases being targeted by the NGSO satellite. And I believe even Starlink has a strategy to provide consumer broadband services in the entry. So as the market access director, I wanted to know whether any specific market access approach is being followed, whether we are targeting the rural or the city areas first, as was also pointed out on the previous session with a different pricing policy also. So over to you.
Thank you. So the goal and mission of Starlink has always been to bring high-speed, low-latency broadband anywhere you may choose to live or work, right? Including places where it has just been very difficult to access, or it has been sometimes unreliable, or it's been entirely unavailable. In the 5 years since Starlink started, we're now in over 150 markets, and in every single one of those markets, the goal has always been to complement existing services and to be able to make sure that similar quality of internet is available whether or not you're in an urban region or whether you're in the most remote part of the world. Now, that said, a very large percentage of Starlink users are residential users who live in rural areas, and a very large number of those users are people for whom Starlink was the first option they had for truly great broadband. So serving those rural users is fundamental to the mission of Starlink. Now, SatCom is not anything new, right? But historically, there have been limitations to how it has sometimes operated. There may be a limitation on capacity per capita, or there may be some limitations on reliability. There may be limitations on whether or not it's easy to access or to even set up on the user side. And certainly it's been plagued by high latency. Now, at Starlink, we very fundamentally believe that low Earth orbit systems remove all of those limitations, and so they remove the limitations on how people can use satellite internet. And I think that's the point. At Starlink, we very fundamentally believe that a great internet experience has to be low latency, because that's when using the internet feels frictionless, right? It's when you have a low latency connection that it feels like websites are loading faster, or a video call or a teleconsultation is closer to real life. And if you want people to do amazing things with Starlink or with the internet, we have a responsibility to making sure that we keep improving service quality, and we have a responsibility to make sure that that service remains low latency, right? Now, rural users are also very fundamental to just how Starlink operates as a network. Starlink capacity is essentially concomitant with the surface area of a place. So to illustrate, the number of users we could serve in metropolitan Mumbai is roughly maybe a tenth of the number of users we could serve in the entire rural parts of the district of Dindori. So we have to bring you rural users onto the network, because if we don't, large parts of our network capacity simply remain underutilized. And that having been said, once you bring those users online, they begin to do incredibly cool things with low latency, high quality broadband, right? We're continuously seeing people come up with use cases with Starlink that were never envisioned when the system was being designed. And this is whether you think of education or healthcare or entrepreneurship or scientific discovery, for example, in Antarctica, or disaster resilience. And we expect Indians to do incredibly cool things with Starlink as well. We're excited to see them do that. I think one of the benefits, right, you've seen with Digital India, for example, and its great success, is the asymmetric returns you get on creativity and entrepreneurship once government services and government systems are brought online. And so we're really excited to see what people who have access to Starlink do with that. We're excited to use Starlink to help spread the reach of things like, for example, Diksha or eSanjeevani, or have more Lakpati Didis use Starlink to expand their entrepreneurship across the country. And as we prepare for that, our focus is just on making sure that we provide a really great internet experience. And then it's the Indians who use that internet that are going to come up with all sorts of new and inspiring use cases and applications.
Thank you. Thank you for providing a positive outlook on the SatCom consumer broadband in India. Now, with the ubiquitous interconnectivity possible with all the various possible solutions, I come to Mr. Keyur Gandhi, who is, I believe, Dhruva is also exploring the providing IoT services through their partnership with Kinesis. So I would like to take your view whether India has enough appetite for this uptake of IoT applications, especially through the satellite interconnectivity.
Good evening, everyone. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me here. To answer the question, I think let's trace back to where the Argos program started, because that's what our inspiration also was when we were trying to understand IoT. For background, Dhruva Space built small satellites, and one of our first missions was actually launching 2 half-U satellites, which had a store and forward payload and mimicked a IoT module. and we'd also built an end user terminal to back up that ability with on the ground. When we looked at the use cases of Argos program, that low bitrate service or that IoT service had actually commenced way back in 1998, and Argos is a program to which ISRO has also been a very strong partner. The kind of use cases behind wildlife tracking, to tracking migration patterns of birds, to setting advanced early warning sensors where we don't necessarily need a lot of bandwidth, for where there is not enough, how we say it in the space systems terms, swap, size, weight and power, where we need to place these sensors at very remote areas and where there is not the need to get that data in real time. These kind of applications are certainly under-catered. Now, when we look at the specific way that we want to approach these services, which is starting to work right from the space segment, because it is the cost of the space segment and the complexity of running the service that determines the entry point barrier or the cost for the end user. So with satellite-based IoT as a separate service, what we anticipate is the first step would be democratization of the options which are available for satellite-based services which are there. Now to go to the second part, which is again looking at the kind of use cases which have been there, with satellite-based IoT, especially in lower bands, because there is advantage of power and advantage of not having to work in a very complex way on the communication systems, we can build specially tailored solution-based modules, which means it is not a standardized connectivity module, but rather it's a solution being built. While mobility, industrial automation, having connectivity in remote areas to do search and rescue are the conventional use cases. Of course, this is a more futuristic perspective to this, both from a technology and a regulation standpoint, that maybe that IoT sensor can also help give critical confirmations on crucial government functions, be it a payment authentication, be it authenticating identity, be it helping doing search and rescue or data reporting from small vessels that fishermen use, or be it advancing certain scientific experiments which are happening, be it in a remote mine, be it in Antarctica, be it in remote parts of Himalayas or the northeastern region. There are multiple applications to work backwards on. What I would, however, go out of my way and certainly say is satellite-based IoT is a segment where there's a lot of work to be done as a market or as industry to work on what are the kind of solutions or what are the kind of users that could crucially benefit with this kind of a connectivity model with the kind of pricing that it can offer for a satellite-based system. And that's where I think the next few years would be critical in ensuring that we work on making these solutions, making these applications and passing along the benefit to the end user.
Thank you. Just one more follow-up question. As you told, there is a lot of work to be done. And what, in your opinion, where the major business opportunity exists, whether it will be in the realization user terminals or in the space segment, or if you could add on to that also?
See, to be perfectly candid, like I admitted, this effort to do satellite-based IoT with dedicated IoT-based constellations has been starting from the scratch, working on the space, ground, and the end-user terminal segment. So there's opportunity in all three, but again, this will be determined by how are the solutions developed and what, in a business sense, we would say is a product market fit, and how does the uptake happen for these services. There are definitely conventional use cases like mobility, industrial automation, search and rescue, which will aid a lot of opportunities, especially in building end user terminals, because here what we are building is not just a standard terminal that can be used across the segments. What we would have to build is, to give an example, if we go back to the Argos program, there's a chipset which is small enough to fit on a bird as an integrated module which has been functioning for 7 years. So what we are building in the end is a highly tailored solution. It's not a standard module to be taken and deployed for use. So modularity and form factor aspects of the end user terminal will make it quite an exciting market. That's where we see the largest opportunity today.
Thank you. In the first round, we had few of the points that have truly been highlighted, one being the quality of service, the resilience that the SatCom communication provide, And we have all known the present use case of providing backhaul through the satellite technology of the 4G, 5G network. So I'd like to come back to Prafulji with respect to whether they have any plans of integration of the NTN technology such that the overall user experience can be improved, or any specific plan which can lead to SatCom demand generation also with this integration of SatCom as well as terrestrial technologies.
Yeah, thank you, Vinay. So as we see, SatCom is no longer isolated technology now. It is based on the 3GPP 17 and then the ongoing discussion in 18 and 19. Now there has been like a close integration discussion between the satellite and the terrestrial architecture. And this provide a seamless type of roaming integration, and the convergence between the satellite and terrestrial has been seen. And the outcome also, we see lot of discussion from last 2 years. We are seeing direct to cell, are probably known as a direct to device connectivity. So lot of satellite operators and technologists already started building the technology as well as satellite, hundreds of satellite even already launched by Starlink for the D2C. But what we see, and probably this is the next big race in the SatCom, okay. But if I talk about the India prospect, and we are very happy, and we could leverage this as a technology neutral tool to provide and expand the network basically in the remote region where the connectivity is essential and needed, or for the disaster management. But what we see today, it still has some technological hurdles, and which is very important to understand and basically talked about it. If we see, the target is to have the normal mobile device directly contacting with the satellite. But if we see the today's scenario, because of the power limitation in the device, there is a link budget issue, and the link budget will not close if we go with a little higher data rate or for the voice calling. And for example, if we see in India, in the remote region, nobody would like to message. Generally, people like to talk, or they record in WhatsApp and send. And still, if you see in the villages and rural, people use the low-cost devices. So one hurdle what we see to target this and the larger adoption, device ecosystem should be there, and which should be available with the low cost. And at least the voice calling as well as low data rate type of connectivity should be there using this D2C technology, especially in India, to have a larger adoption. And if this is the technical as well as the cost perspective of the challenge. And then other challenge, if I talk about the spectrum related, interference related. So if we see, there are two ways to handle this D2D connectivity. There are operators who are using the terrestrial spectrum so that the devices are available and it can be connected directly, which will be a probably quicker adoption. Then there is a other way to use the L and S band MSS spectrum. For that, there are still some devices, but still the device ecosystem properly is needed to in that. But what happens is when we use the terrestrial spectrum as a isolation, and in a country like India where the 99% coverage is there, it's very difficult to share those spectrum to have a continuous connectivity, and probably there will be interference between the satellite beam and terrestrial beam, and it will create a isolation zone or exclusion zone. So there will be still coverage gap. So in my view, when this MSS spectrum as well as the terrestrial spectrum together form a system, and the proper device ecosystem is available, and the service, at least voice and some low data rate type of application is possible, then India definitely may adopt quickly, and wider adoption will be seen. Otherwise, we are little far than adopting this today. That's my personal view.
Thank you. As rightly pointed out, the arrival of D2D and the challenges as well as the technological hurdles. And I believe I was visiting the BSNL stall in the exhibition hall, and I saw there was some solution being provided in their partnership with Viasat. So I'd like to ask Mr. Gautamji to respond to some of what is the solution that Viasat is providing, and if you could add on to the challenges and the technical hurdles that Prafulji has pointed out.
Yeah. So direct to device, in fact, we demonstrated last year, and we're doing it in a small scale at the moment. And the reason is because the regulatory framework is still being worked out. So I think we see multiple business models in India and in fact worldwide. The first one, which is D2D acting as a complementary to the terrestrial networks. And in phase one, as rightly pointed by Prafulji, the phase one, it's going to be more of the messaging side, where you can actually give emergency SOS safety services, which are very critical, especially in areas where you have a patchy network or no network. The second use case, which is important, is where you can actually directly connect to the satellite. That's more on the industrial side, like, for example, shipping, oil and gas, forests, etc. So there are many use cases there where you actually can give industrial kind of connectivity. So phase two, obviously, we will be moving to voice, and there are certain things which are happening on the background side. But I can assure you that we are, at the moment, till the regulations are in place, especially on the spectrum side. On the backside, we are building and expanding our network in India so that we're targeting that we'll have a large-scale direct-to-device services starting, if not by end of this year, early next. So I think that's where the government is very supportive, and we're working very closely with them. But few things take time. So that's where it is. Thank you.
Thank you. You have brought out a point of government support. I'd like to come to Neha ji, as I find that the NGSO, as well as specifically the LEO space sector, is highly capital intensive. So how do you see this investment landscape evolving, and whether there is a possibility of government involvement in respect to investment or otherwise? Your take on that, please.
Thanks, Vinay. Very rightly said, extremely capital intensive to put up a LEO constellation up. That's why today you see we are, as we speak, today only 2 live LEO constellations, global LEO constellations in the world. Though there have been aspirations to put up a lot more, it does take time, it does take a lot of money. And therefore, very rightly said, highly capital intensive. Which is why I think we have been having not just a lot of conversations, there is ongoing work we are doing with a lot of governments. So today, we've heard it through the event as well, sovereignty, security, resilience, all of that is a recurring and very important theme in today's geopolitical environment, and which is why we're working with a lot of governments. Every nation state typically starts by thinking we need to have our own LEO constellation. The sheer nature of a LEO constellation is that it'll be global. So if you have a global asset just serving a single country, it doesn't make sense, which is where I think partners like ourselves, Eutelsat Group, which have shareholding of friendly nation states, become a good partner of choice for such governments. Besides just having the right shareholding structure, we are also built as a solution which is highly secure, highly encrypted, and can literally make it a mini sovereign LEO within our overall LEO for countries. Today, whether it's Korea, Japan, Taiwan, in the APAC region itself, and globally in Europe, we are serving a lot of defense and government requirements, because slowly and steadily governments and countries are realizing it is very capital intensive. I mean, nothing less than $8–10 billion bare minimum for a constellation which will typically have a life of not more than 7 to 9 years, and there is, of course, the cycle of reinvestment. Now, coming to the second part of your question, Vinay, which is the role that governments play, absolutely a very, very critical role. One, as an enabler with the regulatory policies, ease of access, ease of doing business in a country. Essentially, I mean, for example, in India now we are really looking forward to the finalization of the spectrum allocation. So regulators do have a significant role to play as enablers, making sure, see, satellite has to be seen very different from terrestrial. We've, all of this panel has spoken of the fact that we are complementary. We are primary where terrestrial does not make economic or technical sense. Secondary where you have emergency response, resilience, etc. Which is why also one needs to understand satellite needs to be seen very differently from terrestrial when it comes to regulation. Be it the fee structures, be it some of the requirements from a regulatory security demonstration perspective. I know they are all very critical, and that's why security is going to be a critical layer, but the lens has to be different for satellite versus terrestrial. So one, yes, government, as I said, as an enabler. The second key role government plays is, as I mentioned initially, as a user, a customer of satellite services where Viasat's doing, what we are doing both on our GEO and LEO space, being a secure, sovereign solution to the governments, which is reliable, whether it's emergency response, whether it's even connecting the unconnected for various rural connectivity programs. I think so government, of course, has a very critical role to play, both as an enabler and a user. And I would say that, which is why global operators like us are there. So instead of every country wanting to put up their own LEO constellation, the partnership is the name of the game here.
Thank you. I'd like to follow up this with the Parnil ji. If you would like to add on what Ms. Neha has just said about the investment as well as government becoming a user rather than the previous one where you told the consumer broadband was being targeted. Further, with your experience as the most recent or the latest mega satellite operator, whether any other use cases or niche use cases can be explored with the latency or the technological advances that Starlink brings in. If you could add to it.
Thank you. So, like I tried to sort of say in my previous answer also, I think we see Starlink being used in all sorts of cool ways in every single country we operate in. But in every country, it's the people that come up with the greatest use cases, right? If you give someone access to great internet, then creativity and entrepreneurship gets unlocked. I think with respect to just the role that the government plays, there's a couple of different things that we think about, right? We're very conscious of the fact that India is incredibly unique, and that's because it has had an incredible broadband story, right? Whether you look at choice, or you look at quality, or you look at types of technology, or you look at growth and penetration. That's in part because as a people, we're great at technology, we're great at coming up with new use cases, and we're really good at making technology ubiquitous. And the government plays and has played an extremely important part of that story, right, in making technology ubiquitous. The other thing that we think about when we think about India is what is it that we're going to do, given that Indians have grown to expect really great quality internet, because it is ubiquitous, right? So in one, we're excited to contribute to making really great quality internet available and to satisfying that expectation, even in the most remote parts of India. On the other side of things, I think what we're seeing is the government is going to continue to create opportunities for people, and then people will start doing cooler and cooler and cooler things. I think it's the regulatory side that's starting to be really interesting, right? What we've seen is India has always been great at SatCom. ISRO is one of the great satellite programs of the world. ISRO is one of the great space programs of the world. And what we've seen is the government has continuously supported making something like NGSO systems available to all users. They've continuously supported that. We've seen, what we're going to see now is the culmination of a lot of that great dialogue with industry, a lot of the questions of what do you think people can use it for, and a lot of that great preparatory work come to fruition, right? We're very soon going to see the last few regulatory pieces fall into place, including with the great work that the DOT and the TRA are doing in finalizing the rules on things like NGSO spectrum. And then after that, I think we're going to start seeing all sorts of really cool new use cases. So, like I said, as long as the internet is great, people start to do great things. We're excited at working with the people that have built India's great broadband story and on learning from them. And whether or not that's in accelerating what the government is doing with the internet already, or whether or not it's working with the private sector and existing telecom operators to try and expand their network to everyone.
Thank you. We already have what the government can do. I would like to add what come to Mr. Keyur Gandhi, what the industry as well as the government can both do to further unlock the potential of these emerging SatCom technologies, especially if anything respect to the IoT sector or even the other sector. Mr. Keyur, please.
That's actually a very interesting question, considering that we also have a demand generation conversation that has been happening. I think what we've seen in our experience, we've also been part of some of the application adaptation workshops that have been ongoing, especially considering that the growth story of India revolves a lot around how would the end user benefit from these systems which are being built. It is necessary that users and the government work together on making sure that this benefit reaches the end user. For example, with IoT, there are several sectors that could benefit, and there's a lot of validation to do there, and there's a lot of learning also to do on building user-ready solutions, not just providing connectivity. So these kind of dedicated exercises in different sectors being done together by the government and the industry together would really help attain long-term sustainability. And I would like to go back here to one of the references that was made in the inaugural session, right? What we're looking at is India becoming a hub for satellite communications, and that can happen when we also work actively towards building a sustainable commercial space economy, for which downstream is certainly a major part. So specifically, maybe enhancing the regulatory sandbox to truly open up the kind of new applications which are there, and let government be a hook user to truly understand how the network functions, what are the benefits, so that both trade promotion, ecosystem development on one hand and regulation on the other hand can develop together, and maybe to make sure that the cycle of introducing satellite communication services could be much faster, not just for IoT, but for all other use cases as well.
Thank you. We have had a very interesting discussion on unlocking the potential of these emerging technologies as well as the various use cases that can be catered to. Now I request Dr. Manish Saxena to please offer a concluding remarks. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, and it was a very captivating discussion that we had over the last 40-45 minutes. We in the Department of Space firmly believe that it is the applications that drive the technologies, and I also believe that this particular thought is there in the industry as well. And this sentiment was also very apparent in the discussions today when it came to the emerging trends in SatCom, wherein the use cases with respect to reaching the unreached or providing emergency help during a time of an emergency, or improving the experience of the consumers insofar as perhaps even surfing the internet or getting access to some of the government schemes is concerned. These are all the applications that are driving deeply the emerging trends in SatCom. When we see this very catchy words like NTN, NGSO, large constellations, multi-orbit, and so on, direct to device. But at the bottom of it is ultimately what we are delivering to the user. So this type of a discussion has been very helpful in bringing together different thoughts from various stakeholders who are contributing in this arena, and perhaps maybe giving a few of us more pointers to think over when we go back and work on our upcoming projects. In terms of the technologies that we discussed today, perhaps it began with the multi-constellation, multi-orbit constellation. I would like to draw a little parallel between what we discussed today and what is happening in PNT also, the field where I worked for the last 10 years and continue to do so, wherein many systems started with MEO constellation, but, and ultimately they perhaps saw some benefit or some, perhaps advantage in bringing a satellite in a different constellation, like different orbit like GEO. So what is good for a particular user, somebody gets totally blocked from a particular GEO satellite, gets a benefit of a MEO satellite for some other points of time. Similarly, for some other user, if the MEO is crossing the horizon, at least the GEO is available. So that kind of a complementarity is also there as far as SatCom is concerned. And perhaps this is the beginning of that phase where PNT is progressing from MEO to MEO plus GSO, and SatCom is progressing from the phase of GSO to GSO plus non-GSO. So that is one of the very important trends that we picked up today. The other one was how we are able to integrate our services that we are providing ultimately to something that is in the hands of the user, wherein some of our panelists spoke about how to integrate or seamless migration from the existing technologies to a SatCom-based solution. So that is where the challenges lie for many of our industry folks. These challenges are not very straightforward because it has got a lot of regulatory component also into it. What frequencies to use are at the heart of this particular discussion, and some of the points some of our panelists really brought out very well about the ongoing discussions in the WRC also, where these frequency considerations are being debated a lot. And I believe that in the near future a lot of clarity will come once WRs, the next cycles take over, and the industry also matures and is ready with solutions that are very attractive for the user. And then finally, we also talked about the challenges that are underlying for us in terms of not just these technologies, but also the investment and the government support, which is where I pick up that for you people who are catering to a global consumer base, it must be a really great challenge, because while we sit in India and think about our country, the technologies are actually agnostic to the countries and to regions, and you have to at the same time think about the various ecosystems that you are serving to throughout the world. So this is another important technological trend that will continue to really influence the way that the SatCom sector progresses, especially now that we are going from a very institutionalized method of providing SatCom service to something that is there in the hands of every common citizen. So there are a lot of these regional as well as country-wise challenges will really come up. So it has been a very interesting discussion and really sets the tone for the activities in the coming years. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. The organizing team has arranged a memento for everyone. I request everyone to come forward to the stage. And